one tiny hobbit against all the evil the world could muster. A sane being would have given up, but Samwise burned with a magnificent madness, a glowing obsession to surmount every obstacle, to find Frodo, destroy the ring, and cleanse Middle-earth of its festering malignancy. He knew he would try again, fail perhaps, and try once more, 1,000 times if need be, but he would not give up the quest.
Greetings, Earth people and all the spiritual hierarchies. This is 21st Century Radio's Hieronymus and Company, where knowledge comes first, and we're reminding you that we're not just the people from any city or state in the Union, and we're not just the folks from the east or west coasts of America. We're not only Americans, Occidentals, or Orientals. We are people from the planet Earth. We are Earth people. Welcome back to award-winning 21st Century Radio's Hieronymus and Company. I'm Dr. Bob Hieronymus, half of Hieronymus and Company. The other half is Zoe Hieronymus, host of the Evening Show with Zoe. Our executive producer and research assistant is Laura Kortner. Our engineer is Robin London Dean. Now, put your sets and your tape recorders now, because this two-part special is a show you will want to hear again and again. And besides, if you record our programs, you need not complain about our announcing phone numbers too fast, because you can rewind and replay as often as you need to. Thank you, Steve McCarroll of the Baltimore Sun Papers, for announcing this and next week's 4-hour J.R.R. Tolkien special in his Air Check column. Also, thanks to USA Today's Baseball Weekly for covering last Saturday's historic meeting of the Negro League Baseball veterans in Baltimore, in which we played a major role. Now, before we begin tonight's Tolkien special, don't forget the upcoming May 23rd Operation Right to Know demonstration Monday at noon at the Pentagon. Call Elaine Douglas at 202-232-2410 for further information, and tell them Hieronymus and Company sent you. Elaine Douglas needs, listen to this carefully, a musician with portable keyboard and amplifier and microphone for that demonstration. Now, if you're inclined and have the equipment, call her as soon as possible at 202-232-2410. Now, both productions of Hieronymus and Company, The Evening Show with Zoe and 21st Century Radio, are unique in our publicizing of stories that the rest of the media ignores or refuses to acknowledge. Of paramount importance is the attack on our constitutionally guaranteed civil rights by representatives of the American government, be they President Clinton, Henry Kissinger, the CIA, or our local and regional representatives. America's governing powers, in conjunction with corporate powers' big checkbook, have been successfully championing the New World Order and its brand of fascism. Zoe and I stand alone, unfortunately, when we interview those who have documented mega corruption in the government, corporate world, and their media representatives who protect their treasonous acts. And that's why we return to programming on cultural heroes, because they remind us it will take heroic action to halt and reverse the destruction of our constitutional rights and remove the cancer that threatens to destroy our nation that our founding fathers died for. Now, one of the most often repeated themes of great literature is that of the struggle of the forces of evil against good, and the heroic effort and the sacrifices needed to prevent the victory of the dark force. Now, this pattern is mirrored in the individual and group consciousness, and we've presented you examples in the lives of Babe Ruth and the veterans of the Negro Baseball Leagues, as well as Walt Kelly's comic strip Pogo, the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and our previous specials on J.R.R. Tolkien's Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Now, in my opinion, the masterpieces of J.R.R. Tolkien say it best and in superb detail, and that's why we've spent 5 hours thus far in reviewing his works. Now, if you've missed the earlier programs, then get a hold of a 21st Century Radio catalog tape listing and learn what you've been missing. You can do this by sending $5 to Hieronymus and Company, Post Office Box 648, Owings Mills, Maryland 21117. You can use the same address if you want to be put on our list for our upcoming newsletter. Just send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to Post Office Box 648, Owings Mills, Maryland 21117. Only a limited number of these newsletters will be available. First come, first served. J.R.R. Tolkien, 1892 to 1973, was professor of Anglo-Saxon at Pembroke College, Oxford, from 1925 to 1945, and then, until his retirement in 1959, Merton Professor of English Language and Literature. His chief interest was in the literary and linguistic tradition of the English West Midlands, especially in Beowulf and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, but he is better known to the reading public as the author of Farmer Giles of Ham, The Hobbit, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, the 3 volumes of The Lords of the Rings, and the Silmarillion. Now, hobbits were much like rustic English people. They were 2 to 4.5 feet tall. They lived to be about 100. They lacked imagination, yet had plenty of courage. They loved peace and quiet and good-tilled earth. They disliked machines, were handy with tools, nimble, but they didn't like to hurry. They had sharp ears and eyes, were inclined to be fat and wear bright colors, but seldom wore shoes. Hobbits liked to laugh and eat 6 meals a day and drink. They liked parties and giving and receiving presents. They sound like my daughter. They were a whole-dwelling people, said to be related to humans and inhabited a land they called the Shire. Now, Tolkien began The Hobbit in 1930, and it was published in 1937. The Lord of the Rings was published in 1949. Tolkien's works have sold over 15 million copies and have been translated into 26 languages. There are over 20 contributors to tonight's and next week's special, and we're awarding their books, videos, posters, figurines, and trading cards throughout both programs. We'll also be announcing many phone numbers and addresses. If I go too fast, you can always call us here at WCBM and request a repeat. Our number here is 922-6680. Now let us remember that what the elves, dwarves, kings, and magicians couldn't accomplish was completed by the halflings, the hobbits. To my mind, that's very much the same circumstances we find ourselves in today worldwide. We are the hobbits, and the dark force is the New World Order, otherwise known as fascism. The American publishing house connected with the success of Tolkien's work is Houghton Mifflin. On earlier Tolkien programs, we interviewed Austin Olney, former editor-in-chief of Houghton Mifflin, who worked directly with J.R.R. Tolkien, and who joined us through the gracious assistance of Mab Gray, Director of Publicity. You can reach Houghton Mifflin at 212-420-5800. We'll be awarding 4 of their books tonight. Now, if you own a VCR, then you're in for some wonderful times when you go to Blockbuster Video and select a copy of the Warner Video The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and After the King. All animated adventures, a total of more than 5 hours of animated Tolkien. And we have the good people at Blockbuster Entertainment to thank for donating copies of these videotapes for prizes for tonight's listeners and guests. Now, one of the great joys of our work is becoming familiar not only with the work of individuals, but those people that created it. For example, during our first Beatles Yellow Submarine reunion, one of my favorite artists, Heinz Edelman, joined us. He is the father of the Yellow Submarine art, but of course, his accomplishments after 1968 were also staggering, a world-class contributor to 20th century culture. Well, our first guests tonight are as synonymous to Tolkien art as Heinz Edelman is to the Yellow Submarine art. Fans of J.R.R. Tolkien are familiar with these identical Aquarian twins whose names will forever be linked to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. They are Greg and Tim Hildebrandt, or if you're left-handed, Tim and Greg Hildebrandt. We've reviewed Greg Hildebrandt's trading cards by Comic Images months ago, and the superlatives I used were well-deserved. On May 22nd, on our next trading card show, we'll examine Tim Hildebrandt's Flights of Fancy set by Comic Images of Saddlebrook, New Jersey. My introduction to their work was through the 1976 to 1978 J.R.R. Tolkien calendars, which were magnificent productions. And again, like Heinz Edelman, the accomplishments of the Hildebrandt brothers after their Tolkien calendars was nothing short of amazing. I could sit here, friends, and read you 4 pages of awards and accomplishments, but in the interest of saving time for our guests, I will only briefly mention that together they've won the coveted gold medal from the Society of Illustrators. Their giant panda book was chosen as one of the Child Study Association of America's children's books for the year in 1973. Tim won his Award of Merit at the Society of Illustrators annual show for the cover illustration of The Children of Arabelle in 1987. They became celebrated animators and documentary filmmakers, winning the Golden Eagle Award for Project Hope. Other illustration credits include The Sword of Shannara, Barbarella, The Clash of the Titans, Star Wars, The Secret of Nim. I must stop here, guys. I could go on. I really could. But let me conclude by saying that they separated in 1981 to complete individual works, and tonight, for the first time on planet Earth this lifetime, they are sharing a radio microphone. But a final note. In February of 1993, Greg's centerfold painting of The Unexpected Party from the 77 Tolkien calendar sold for $150,000. And in terms of success on any level, the Hildebrandt brothers are a true phenomenon, and we're so very happy both could join us on this historic evening. Welcome to award-winning 21st Century Radio, Tim and Greg, where J.R.R. Tolkien comes first tonight. Are you there, guys?
I'm here, Bob. This is Tim.
Hey, you hear me running I'm running at the mouth here, 85 miles an hour.
I was getting wrapped up in that.
Yeah, well, now we can slow down a little bit.
All the stuff that we did.
Well, to save time, our precious commodity is time here. What I'd like to do is ask you both a question and have each respond giving your personal perspective. First, when did you discover the works of J.R.R. Tolkien? Okay. Tim, you want to start first?
This is Tim, yeah. Greg and I were making documentary films back in the 60s for Bishop Fulton Sheen in New York City. Mm-hmm. We worked there for about 4 or 5 years. We went
on World Hunger.
Pardon?
Basically, we went to Africa and West Africa. We were in Ghana and we were in Colombia, South America. And this is Greg chiming in. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell us if it's going to have voices in it.
Well, we'll do the best we can.
Okay, Tim.
But we had been going around photographing poverty for 8 years, and it was overwhelming, and it started actually to get to me, sticking cameras in poor people's faces and making a living off of this, even though we thought that we were doing good for these people, which I did.
Well, they were consciousness-raising films.
Right.
Back, that was in mid to late 60s.
Right. But at any rate, in an office that we worked for in New York City, one of the girls there came in and looked at a painting that Greg and I had done, and she said, "That reminds me of Tolkien." And I said, "What's Tolkien?" And she brought The Hobbit in the next day, and that was it.
Yeah.
We were both hooked.
What year was that?
1967.
Oh, what a year that was, huh?
Yep.
Well, that was
It was like an explosion going off in my mind.
That with everything else going on.
Yeah, that with everything else going on. It was like, with the Vietnam thing, we were involved with anti-war stuff and everything. And what the Lord of the Rings did was, it focused very easy to see what was good and what was evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There was no doubting. There were no gray zones in it. Yeah. And I think that was the immense attraction at that time of that book. It just really clearly showed what's good and what is evil.
So 67 was the big year for you guys. It was a big year for a lot of us at that time. Yeah. Now let's focus on you and Tolkien. Here we have two artists, and you both have a joint project, say a calendar. How are the themes decided? Do you both work on the same painting idea or in its execution?
Yeah. We'll read it. We make a list of illustrations. Tim will read it. I read it. We make a list of scenes that we want to illustrate, and then compile them, stick them together, go over them, and discuss it through, both arriving at what scene in those Tolkien calendars, what particular scene we wanted to do, and included in that decision process is the evil forces, the good forces, lighting conditions. We want things in the sunlight. We want things at sunset. We want things in firelight.
Contrast in each of the pictures. Color contrast. The Siege of Minas Tirith, all in oranges and reds. The next picture, probably Galadriel, all in blues, cool, very calm. That we staggered in each of these calendars, that kind of a contrast. Mm-hmm. And both of us think in exactly the same terms because we come from exactly the same influences. Our mother took us both to see Disney's Pinocchio when we were 5. That was the very first film we saw, and that set us right on our path. But we had all the same influences. The early comic strips of Hal Foster, Prince Valiant, Alex Raymond. So we had exactly the same backgrounds, and so we look at things in exactly the same way, and there's no disagreement in what we do.
Right, it's nonverbal, pretty much.
Now, what medium do you use?
Those are all done in acrylic, and principally that's what we work in, even though we've done watercolor and whatnot, but we paint in acrylic paint.
What kind of, when you do sketches, what are they in? Are they in charcoal or pencil?
Pencil and paper.
Pencil and paper, yeah.
Pencil and paper. No inks?
No. Well, we've done ink.
That's a whole distinction that yet to take on. It's very, very particular, and I'm in awe of those who really handle it well. Like all the comic strip illustrators, Walt Kelly, which is amazing.
A big hero of ours.
Really?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Well, we got 2 libraries to send to you guys, 40 books each, and videos and audio tapes, and we had better put a pogo item in each one of them. I didn't know that.
Big pogo fans.
Yeah.
In the early comic illustrators like, Milt Caniff and, those guys.
Terry and the Pirates. Alex Raymond.
And Hal Foster.
I think Hal Foster, though, to me, was
Prince Valiant.
the Michelangelo of the comic strip.
Yeah.
The early Prince Valiant.
Well, we're going to be taking a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about a specific work. The centerfold. No, friends, not the centerfold of Penthouse or the centerfold of Playboy. We're going to talk about the centerfold of the 77 calendar, which is an original which recently sold for a mere $150,000. I guess that did make you guys very happy, did it? Well, you could party for a little while on 150 grand. Okay, hold it there, guys. We're going to take a break here, give away a library, and have a darn good time. Time to test your memories on last week's program, friends. Our first winner tonight will walk away with the following: an award-winning 21st Century Radio library of Tolkien items, including, listen to this, an autographed copy of Greg Hildebrandt's poster 25 by 38 inches, Ring of the Elf Queen, courtesy of Unicorn Publishing and Gene Scrocco. Phone number 201-292-6854. Packs of Hildebrandt trading cards, courtesy of Comic Images. Phone number 201-794-9877. A copy of Morgoth's Ring, Volume 10 of the History of the Middle-earth, courtesy of Houghton Mifflin Publishing. Phone 212-420-5800. Thank you, Mab Gray. The video, Return of the King, based on the J.R.R. Tolkien, courtesy of Blockbuster Video. ABC for Book Collectors by John Carter, courtesy of Knoll Books, publishers of Wayne Hammond's Tolkien Descriptive Bibliography. Phone number 302-328-7232, and many related Tolkien and 21st Century Radio items, such as the American Tolkien Society's Journal, the Minas Tirith Evening Star, and a Frodo Lives on 21st Century Radio Badge of Courage. Now you know what you'll win. Here's what you have to do to win. Be the first to answer this question. Our first guest last week was Laurie Adelaide Toy. What is the name of her group, and where is it located? City and state. Call us at 922-6680, WCVM 680. If you can remember the name of Laurie Toy's group and the city and state they were located in, you're going to be our winner.
Hear you now, a story of good against evil, an epic that has its beginning and an ending, and ends at a beginning. Listen as we speak of the fall of a Lord of Darkness and the return of a King of Light. Concern yourselves with armies and wizards, phantoms and emperors, cloud-capped towers and bloodied fields of horrendous carnage. Consider no less than the cataclysmic transformation of that ancient world of wonder and magic to the world we know now, of man. What mighty lord, you may ask, is hero enough to evoke such cosmic metamorphosis? Why, no lord at all, but the littlest of fellows, Frodo the Hobbit, and his faithful squire, Samwise.
Welcome back to 21st Century Radio's award-winning Hieronymus and Company. Our guests are the Hildebrandt brothers, Tim and Greg, and we're about ready to talk about a centerfold. Yes, the old centerfold from a 1977 calendar. Guys, I want to thank you very much for signing my centerfold. Right. I appreciated that.
Welcome. Sure thing.
I saved that calendar through thick and thin. Hey, well, let's get specific about this. It's called The Unexpected Party. Tell me, how did this painting evolve? What kind of preliminary reading and research was needed to launch or prepare this work?
Well, that's an illustration right out of The Hobbit. That's where the dwarfs... Actually, that's the beginning of the quest, in effect, because that's where all the dwarfs collect, along with Gandalf,
right,
to persuade Bilbo to
go on this
quest to destroy this ring.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all gathered in that room, and the origins. I mean, we start with a pencil sketch, right? I mean, right, just a little doodle. I don't remember who started. Do you remember, Tim?
No.
Who started that first?
Probably both of us at the same time, over each other's shoulder. No, move it over to the left more. No, lower the horizon line a little more. If you notice on that picture, if you look at Bilbo, who's the center of attention, his eye is right on the horizon line. Now, I can't possibly over the phone describe what a horizon line is.
But that's your eye level. That's where you, the viewer, that's where are looking at that scene from. So all attention is right on Bilbo, who's looked very skeptical. And, you know, the thing is to try to get the bearing down of all these guys on this one character to get him to move on this quest.
Because, like you mentioned earlier, hobbits want to stay in the warm coziness of their houses, which, you know, with these low ceilings and constant fires going in the fireplaces, and not go out into the cold, cruel world. So and all these
it's all warm lighting, right?
Are your I don't know if you would call them drawing boards, but where you work, are they by one another or?
Yes, right next to each other.
Right next to each other, so you can cheat.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm only kidding around.
Look over each other's shoulders.
Yeah. Well, how long did it take to do that piece of work?
Oh, about a month, I think.
Yeah, that includes everything. That
1 month.
That includes the concept sketches. Now we pose models for what we do.
Yeah, we use friends to pose for all those characters. We make costumes and photograph them in the costumes. And coincidentally, half the guys in that picture were musicians.
They weren't dwarfs, but
right.
We don't have any friends that are dwarfs, sad to say. So we have to shrink down in the drawing. We have to reduce them by 4 heads.
Mm-hmm.
The normal person's, an ideal person is actually 8 heads tall. Did you know that?
In Michelangelo's heroic proportion.
Right. A dwarf or a hobbit is about 4 heads tall. You actually, you know, say a human-sized head, but they're only 4 heads tall.
Wow.
But the dwarfs out of Disney Seven Dwarfs were probably about 2.5 heads tall.
And what we did with that picture of Bilbo, I shot Tim, and I shot my son, who was probably about 5 years old at that time, and we combined the 2 likenesses. So that actually is a combined likeness of Tim and my son.
So an adult and a child together.
Right, just pulling that together.
What was the size of that piece of work, the finished work?
About 5
feet across.
5 feet?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, no wonder. Boy, I'm telling you, when you look in there and you see the detail, it's amazing. There are worlds within worlds within worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all the little paraphernalia around it, according to Tolkien. I mean, we read very, very carefully every passage we're going to illustrate to make sure we got every particular detail that Tolkien mentions, like the seed cakes that are in that picture.
Right. Mm-hmm. How about the clock on the mantle? We were painting that in, and when we did the layout phase. And what do we have? We had we put in Roman numerals, I believe, and we brought it into Lester Del Rey and Judy Del Rey, who were the editors at Ballantine Books, and who were the experts on Tolkien at that time, and great people, incredible. Lester's an old science fiction writer from the 20s and 30s, and Judy Lynn was his wife and the editor. But Lester was the one that suggested the elven runes on the face of the clock.
The elven runes,
seems to make a lot of sense. They're elven runes.
Yeah, well, certainly it would make a lot of sense.
We did these calendars. We did 3 of them, 1976, 77, 78, and up until that time, we had been illustrating children's books and it had a name with publishers, but no, that was it. As soon as we did these things, we started getting fan letters, but we also started getting little critiques of our pictures from far away as England. And they would come up with such details as, I think you put one too many buttons on Frodo's pants.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't want to bring that up. Since somebody in England did, I guess I can too.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, it must be really furious, though, to take a piece of work that's about a painting that's 5 feet long and turn it into a poster which is less than 18 inches.
Right. Well, we always paint larger than it's going to be printed. You have to do that to get the detail into the painting.
It comes down. When it reduces, it really increases the appearance of detail.
Realism.
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly does that. But you got the other situation like with trading cards. Now, Tim, we're going to be reviewing your set, so we're not going to say too much about it now because we're saving that for May 22nd. Maybe, Tim, you could join us on May 22nd when we do your set.
Absolutely.
Okay, but when we took a look at Greg's cards, the Hildebrandt and Hildebrandt II cards by Comic Images of Saddlebrook, New Jersey, they're extremely moving, but when you see an enlarged card to the size of a poster, like the one we just awarded, who was that, to James? Did James win that one? Yeah, he did. James in Rosedale. Way to go, James. He won that whole library. Now, when you take a look at those cards, and you compare the card to that 28 by 38 inches or something like that.
There is no comparison, actually. Yeah. It's night and day.
Yeah.
Bigger is better in that respect.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And when you look at the flowers and the grass and all the stuff that James is going to be taking a look at next week, I'm telling you, it's just, it does something to your soul. This is going to sound corny, but it does. It's internally moving. It's not just great, it's not just wonderful to look at and beautiful and everything, but it awakens something deep within all of us, which I think is enormously important these days, because the rest of the world doesn't pay any attention to soul.
Right.
Except for soul music every now and then, right?
Spirit, everything is so dramatic and
well,
on the surface.
As we discussed with Heinz Edelman, artist studios are havens of sanity and transformation. Would either of you care to comment on that observation?
Havens of sanity
and transformation. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, to appearances, I think a lot of people might walk in initially and say it looks rather insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's chaotic.
It's chaotic.
Because there's so much going on. There's so, costumes slung in the corner, reference books strewn on the floor, paint tubes,
of
squash,
humor and conversation, which is outrageous and without any bounds to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we work in a studio together, Tim and I, and my daughter, and who's an artist. And so we just have this incredible time all day long.
Constant. Well, actually, it goes to very quiet periods where we may have Bach playing or Mozart, and then all of a sudden something starts up, a line that an announcer might make, and then we'll go on a half hour and just create a whole scenario around that. And
while we're hunched over our boards, drawing and inventing, I couldn't think of a better world.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that when you go into an artist studio and you see all the stuff laying all around, people think it's in chaos, and actually, you really can tell if somebody's been moving stuff around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is because you spend. I'd imagine you guys spend the same kind of time I spent in my studio, which is 12 to 14 hours a day.
That's right. You paint.
And you do listen to music, right?
Yes.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
How long have you been painting?
Oh, myself?
Yeah.
Since I was 6 years old, when I learned how to put. I was sitting in the bathtub, and I was reading a Donald Duck comic, and
Oh, Bart,
that's great.
And I said, I think I can put glasses on Donald Duck. And I did.
A Walt Kelly cover on it, too.
And I got so excited when I put these glasses on Donald Duck that I knew then. Just like you guys, when you were 2 years old, your dad had, I don't know what kind of crayons he had. I guess they were Crayola.
Crayola.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys borrowed his crayons at first, and then you just took them.
That's right. We actually, that was it. We swiped everything out of the house. Everything was grist for our mill.
Yeah.
We used to raid our mother's linen closet to make costumes and puppets out of, that kind of thing.
Now, when you were illustrating some of Tolkien's masterpieces, did either of you experience anything out of the ordinary in respect to his being? Did he influence, or could you feel his influence when you were working on his ideas?
You mean some kind of a physical presence? Not that. I certainly was. I felt a very akin to his spirit,
mm-hmm.
Spiritual attitude. I mean, that I could feel, but I felt that when I read the book.
Right. Totally.
His love of nature, is just so penetrating. That's what moved me.
Sometimes it's tough to put into words. And most of the time, we're not like, how can you say it, Tim, very verbal in the sense of digging beneath things,
Sure.
I think it all happens with the pictures.
Well, plenty of times if you do, you destroy, sometimes you destroy your best work by being over, it's like the left hemisphere of the brain does well at reading, and the right hemisphere of the brain does better at gestalt and drawing and painting and that kind of thing, and trying to build the bridge between the two, you lose something.
I think. To overanalyze it. I don't know if there is such a word as overanalyzing, but
mm-hmm.
I think, it's just like you kind of let it roll over you and get inside of it, like inside a Tolkien story. It's like you step into that world that he created and get lost in it, feel it, and breathe it and just let it take you over and, you know, push you around.
Well, how many of Tolkien's works did both of you illustrate?
Well, we illustrated 3 calendars. I got them spread out on the floor in front of me here. There's, let's see, 13, 14 pictures per calendar. So that was
it. And we did a cover for Farmer Giles of Ham for Ballantine books.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually the first Tolkien painting we ever did.
Well, of all of those paintings, those, did you say 40-some?
Yeah, 40-something.
Hey, it's a movie, isn't it? No, it's a radio. No, it's a television show. 40-something. All right. Now, when you did those 40-somethingers, which would you say were your favorites? Which ones did you like best? Tim, you go first on that one.
Yeah, this is always like pick your favorite color.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
They're all our children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How are you going to say that? I don't know. You know, there's something about the very first centerfold that still gets me. It may be not the best painted of the pictures, but there's something about the mood, the atmosphere. It's the fellowship, the entire fellowship. Gandalf and the hobbits up front. There's something about the mood of that, and all the characters are all there on one scene. And the composition I like. I don't know. That might be. I don't know. That might be my favorite.
What about you, Greg?
Well, again, like, you know, with all the other stuff that Tim said about, you know, your kids and all this stuff, but I don't know. There's one in the Healing of Eowyn. You know that scene?
Yeah, sure.
The healing scene of where it was, Aragorn is got his back towards you. She's laying down, and he's got the steam the magic mist is rising from the medicine, the cure, and there's Gandalf standing over, and her brother. That in the rays of light coming down. That's I don't know. That picture, that, you know, kind of like, I think that's my favorite.
It's very operatic.
Yeah,
very operatic.
And spiritual and everything that it says in terms of rebirth and you know, and all that kind of stuff. But what's behind it all? Not only the physical painting itself, but the, you know, I can remember the feeling of painting that and of death and resurrection kind of stuff. You know,
probably that was playing on all that business.
It's all in that picture.
Strauss.
Do you guys remember the music you were listening to when you paint a painting?
No.
Does that happen to you?
We play so many pieces of classical music throughout a painting. It's like they all become meshed together.
Yeah.
Playing from Night on Bald Mountain to Vivaldi.
I can remember when we were working on Urshrak, which was a book that we wrote with a friend Jerry Nichols and illustrated an epic quest. We were trying to get that turned into a film. I was listening to Whole Planets a lot while working on that.
Yeah.
That, for some reason, stands out of my mind.
You guys ever listen to Beethoven's Ninth Choral Symphony?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, boy, doesn't that get you?
Knock you out.
It gets you moving. I'm telling you, by the end of that choral symphony, you're...
Believe it, man. You're floating. You're floating.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. Okay, time out here on the playing field. It's time out, and we're going to take a break here, give away another library, and when we return, we have Wayne Hammond coming for a few minutes, and then we'll get back to Tim and Greg Hildebrandt. Oh, friends, let me tell you, if you want to get in contact, not got in contact with them, but if you want to get hold of some of their material, let me tell you who to call. Call Unicorn Books, 201-292-6854, 201-292-6854. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Sat alone on a seat of stone, and munched and mumbled a bare old bone. For many a year he had not it near, for meat was hard to come by, done by, gum by. In a cave in the hills he dwelt alone, and meat was hard to come by.
There are moments which can change a person for all time. And I suddenly wondered if I would ever see my snug hobbit hole again. I wondered if I actually wanted to.
Let go of the moment that life makes you whole.
A few months months ago, our family trekked off to Newcastle, Delaware for a mini vacation, enjoyed ourselves visiting the old town hall and marketplace and purchasing some really neat and unusual stuff. But as far as we're concerned tonight, we missed one of the main attractions located at 414 Delaware Street. And that's Knoll Books, and in a few minutes you'll know why. Now, it won't surprise many of our listeners to know that Hieronymus and Company family loves books. Combined, we read about 4 to 7 books a week, and that's not counting 7-year-old Anna, who knocks off maybe a dozen or so, huh? Our personal libraries in the tens of thousands of volumes, and hundreds of our listeners would tell you they've won libraries of 20 to 225 items each from the 21st Century Radio over the years. Now, we even donate libraries of books to established libraries such as Enoch Pratt and various schools. In 1993, Knoll Books hit the big time. It has become a legend by publishing J.R.R. Tolkien, a descriptive bibliography by Wayne G. Hammond, with the assistance of Douglas A. Anderson. Now, for those of you who love Tolkien's accomplishments and desire a record of his work, this is the main attraction. Now, during my doctoral research days, bibliographies became a major source of enjoyment. Well, you kind of expect that out of a Virgo, wouldn't you? Well, joining us now is compiler Wayne G. Hammond, assistant librarian in the Chapin Library of Rare Books at Williams College, Williamstown, Massachusetts. He's a regular contributor of the bibliographic notes to the Journal of Mythlore and was awarded the 1991 Clyde S. Kilby Research Grant from the Marion E. Wade Center in Wheaton College for the completion of this book. His collection of Tolkiana is one of the finest in private hands. Welcome to award-winning 21st Century Radio's Hieronymus and Company, Wayne.
Thanks very much.
Now, would you like to review what a descriptive bibliography of J.R.R. Tolkien contains and why it was needed?
Right. A descriptive bibliography is different from just a general checklist of works in that it not only lists things, it also describes them physically. So what my book is a list and a description of Tolkien's books, the books to which he contributed or which he edited or translated, his contributions to magazines, published letters and extracts from letters, miscellaneous items such as audio recordings, interviews, Tolkien's published paintings and drawings, and translations of Tolkien's works into foreign languages. Mm-hmm. And what my book does is describe Tolkien's books. It tells what's on their title pages, it tells what the bindings look like, it tells what the dust jackets look like, it tells how many copies were in the first printing. And these are all things that collectors and booksellers and librarians will want to know.
Well, even young folks like me, Wayne, would like to know that, especially in putting together my own little miniature Tolkien library. Now, Tolkien's works seem to speak to a generation, or to generation after generation of souls. Surely he must be fulfilling some very important needs. In your opinion, what needs was and will be he fulfilling or satiating with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, Wayne?
I think that the main thing he's doing is telling a good story. People always want to hear a good story, and he's one of the best storytellers around. I think people are also appreciating his superb command of the English language, and that's a very rare quality among authors in general. I think also he manages to convey a great sense of wonder, which he never lost even though he lived to be 81. And people want that, they need that, even if they don't know they need it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Winchester bibliographies of the 20th Century Writers series, published by Knoll, are coming out with new books on Leonard Woolf and W.H. Davies. I also note that one will be coming out on H.G. Wells. When will that be?
Well, that's the first I've heard of H.G. Wells, actually. I'm glad somebody's doing it. It needed to be done for a long time.
Yeah.
I suspect that won't be for a few years. They have a few books, bibliographies that are to come in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really impressed with the quality of the selections of Knoll. I'm sorry we missed it when we were up there in Delaware a few months ago. Well, it's been all too brief, but we got to move on. We want to thank you for your major contributions to Tolkien consciousness. Your work is a great service to his memory. And while we're at it, friends, we'd like to thank Knoll Books for providing us with a review copy of your J.R.R. Tolkien, a descriptive bibliography. We're going to recommend that Baltimore's Enoch Pratt Library obtain a copy for its reference section. Oak Knoll sent us multiple copies of a new book called ABC for Book Collectors by John Carter, revised by Nicholas Barker, and this remarkable publication is an ABC of book collecting for novices and would-be collectors. I'm sure you've seen it, haven't you, Wayne?
Yes, it's a standard work, and I always have it right close at hand.
No, I love it. I am so happy we were able to award these books tonight. Boy, and every library prize that we award tonight and next week will contain one. Friends, you can reach Oak Knoll at 414 Delaware Street, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. Their phone number is 302-328-7232. Visit them on your next trip to Newcastle, because we certainly will. We want to thank you for joining us for this brief little moment here, Wayne.
Well, you're very welcome. Glad I could be with you.
Same here. Okay, friends, now what we're going to need to do... No, we don't need to take a break. We're free. We can move right back to the Brothers Hildebrandt. Are the Brothers Hildebrandt still in there?
Still here.
Good going, you guys.
Still here.
I'm telling you, that one particular work by Wayne Hammond, I love bibliographies. I know... I know how terrible that must sound to some people out there. What's a guy like him doing, liking bibliographies? But, you know, bibliographies, when you go through good bibliographies, you can start discovering stuff you'd never, ever find anywhere. Well, it's just a kind of a joy there. Now, back to what we were talking about, friends. Whew, boy, I got so many notes in front of me, as you can imagine, folks. You know, you guys have taken a look at our 21st Century Radio catalog.
Yeah, I have.
And to some folks, it's really a big shock.
All over the place.
Because basically, you know, what we try to cover are areas that mainstream media absolutely fails or does such a miserable job to consider seriously. How do you feel about our media and the kind of job they do in respect to, like, say, for instance, just in the areas of the unusual?
Well, I never see anything unusual.
Well, it's usually made fun of or mocked out.
Yeah,
that's
generally
usually the
looked at
stance,
as
right? Everybody's always with this, like, this snicker on their face.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they do that?
They don't understand it. They're afraid of it. They want to keep the status quo going.
Things have always been that way.
It sounds like you've been listening to 21st Century Radio. That's exactly.
I remember when Greg and I first started getting interested in science fiction back in the 50s, George Pal films, When Worlds Collide, War of the Worlds, all those things.
In our
Destination
he was always
Moon.
talking about Atlantis. He liked to fantasize about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Remember that, Tim?
What?
Pa. Always talking about Atlantis.
And ancient Egypt. We had at least had a father that had a mind. But I mean, there were people that, like, we'd come in and start talking about, wow, did you see that George Pal film, Destination Moon? They're floating around out in space, and people started laughing at you.
Like they didn't even believe
you were weird.
Yeah.
Well, I think they still act that way, right? Anything
we talked about flying saucers, you know, I mean,
anything that's not understood or readily seen, or you can't see it, touch it, feel it with your,
right.
you know, is looked at like it doesn't or isn't or can't be or shouldn't be or.
When Greg and I were teenagers, we lived out in the country, and we had adjacent to our second-story bedroom, there was a big porch, and we'd go out late at night, and there was no city lights around. You see all the stars scattered across the sky. We would lay out there for a half hour and try to telepathically communicate with some alien
signs of life or of anything, whatever, UFOs.
Well, we're going to be sending you guys. We are really excited. We're more excited than you are about sending you these libraries, because there are going to be books on crop circles from England,
right.
The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, the all kinds of UFO books, but a lot on Mars, especially the Monuments of Mars by Hoagland, The Face on Mars by Pozos, The Unusual Mars Surface Features by DePietro, and then you're going to love this one, The McDaniel Report. This is 1993. This is absolutely the best publication on the Mars series. And then the videos and audios that we're going to be sending you, there's only one thing we're asking, of course, is that the videos that you can look at them, you can copy them, you can do anything you want with them, but later on we could use them back so we can lend to somebody else. But everything else you can keep. From that standpoint, we're very excited about passing this material on to you because you have been so generous. I'm telling you, it's really great to bump into folks whose heart is out there, and they don't mind, showing it a little bit.
Oh, I mean, what's it all about? How many times, it's like, what's it about, right? I mean, we both teach. Tim teaches, and it's like you got to give it away. You give it away.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep, and especially in our culture today, If you don't put that out there, then it's not going to get anywhere because the media is going to cut it out or make fun of it.
That's right.
Absolutely. You know, there's a whole big debunking thing going on over now in England on the Loch Ness creature.
Right. They try to disprove that, right, with that whole... Yeah, who wants that?
Well, the key problem, of course, is they are only talking about the 1930s. They don't talk about the 1972 underwater photographs,
right,
or the 1975 underwater photographs. They're doing the same number, and this is like a PSYCOP number, the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of the Claims of Paranormal. They do this all the time. They did the same number on the Shroud of Turin, and now new evidence of, not new evidence, but evidence definitely establishing the dating of the Shroud of Turin was around the time period of Christ. That does not mean it's Christ's shroud.
Right. Because of the pollen in there, right?
Yes.
The weave of the cloth.
They actually tested in 1987, 88 the wrong areas.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I know.
And the big media, of course, said, well, that shows you.
Right.
It didn't show us anything.
What is it, Bob? Why are people afraid to
open their minds up?
Well, you guys hit it on the head. It's a status quo trip.
Right.
The status quo is a power-centered type of situation in which, say, for instance, you have today, and this is not new to you, and it's certainly, hopefully, not new to our listeners, but we get new listeners all the time. The big media is owned by big corporate powers. Mm-hmm. And when you take NBC, owned by General Electric, that should have never happened. But because General Electric, of course, is the biggest polluter almost on the planet, and when big stories come, like the dumping of oil and Exxon up there in Alaska, it is NBC did such a whitewash of that type of situation. The same thing that happened, say, for instance, in Chernobyl, and the same, because when they're in the nuclear power business, it's a worldwide thing, and almost everything we have in our town, in Baltimore City, Johns Hopkins University and Hospital, and I've been affiliated and on and off for over 20-some years. And I'm telling you, they are decades behind in leading-edge research. They don't even allow acupuncture or homeopathy into the hospital there, and it's just frightening. It's absolutely frightening. You know, we're a one newspaper town, guys, and what that newspaper will print, that's it.
Yeah,
and most people believe it. It's a death. It's a type of a slow death, or kind of thing. Now, back to Tolkien. Well, I forgot what we were talking about. We're like old friends having a good time here. What do you think Tolkien's soul was trying to accomplish in devoting so much of his energy and life force to the establishment of Britain's mythology?
Oh, God. That's a loaded question.
Well, what did you expect me to ask you how your hair was cut?
But people have always, haven't they compared Tolkien's Lord of the Rings to the old world crisis that was going on at the time of the Second World War? And he kept denying it. He kept saying no.
Did he?
Yeah. Yes, that's right, yeah. He hated the idea of it being an allegory.
Allegory, yeah.
He was all against that. And yet, as you guys mentioned, he did think a great deal of the theory of Atlantis, which he called Numenor.
Yeah, Numenor, yeah.
And another number has been done by the media on the situation with Atlantis, which we're not going to go into tonight. But it seems to me, I don't know if did we finish with that last question there?
No, you asked what his contribution was to English. I really can't, I don't even think I'm qualified to say it. Just, that line of what a storyteller. I think he told the greatest story. I mean, the greatest story. I've read so much fantasy since that time, and they just seem to be paltry imitations of his. And I think. Yeah,
well, I guess when you do 20-some years of work before you'd write, you write a book.
Right. It's like opening doors to new worlds and new possibilities. That's what that epic's about. That's what it does for me.
Well, you guys are opening new doors. I was really impressed by In Search of King Tut's Tomb.
Great.
That's a little booklet that should be in every school in the United States.
Great. I'm glad you like it.
You'd like that too, wouldn't you? Yep. Especially, maybe sometime you would do something on the Great Pyramid, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be good times.
Indeed.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. Of course, there's not enough time, but perhaps you'd care to join us again before the year is out. As a matter of fact,
great, Bob.
Tim, if you could join us in a couple of weeks for just a few minutes on that new set that you have put out, I'd appreciate that, or that who with Comic Images has put out. Boy, they've done some great stuff. And thank you again also for signing all of the posters, the books, the sweatshirts, etc. Our listeners and other guests will treasure them, because when we receive this material, what we do is, as you'll find out when you get these two libraries of altogether about 80 different items, they're all from our other guests. Our guests are enormously generous, and for all kinds of reasons which we can't go into at this time. So, friends, if you can obtain some of their posters, books, by contacting Unicorn Publishing at 120 American Road. Now, there's an interesting road. Morris Plains, New Jersey, 07950, or phone 201-292-6854. We're going to take a break here. We'll be back next hour with another hour of Tolkien.